만약에 내가 로만한테 내 에세이를 써달라 그러면 써줄 거야? 대신?
Where are you applying?
하버드에. 아니면 예일?
No.
나 들어갈 수 있을 것 같아?
To do the interview, you still need to get recommendations, you still need to do the test, and if the essay is totally different from everything else, then you're like, this essay doesn't match this application.
너무 솔직하다. 조금의 거짓말도. 오늘은 저 특별히 이 티셔츠를 입었어요.
Yeah, Vineyard Vines.
이거 아무 상관이 없는데 요즘 알아도 에세이를 쓰고 있거든요. 뭐지 고등학교나 대학교나 다 에세이 쓰는 시즌 아니야?
No, because the 고등학교 doesn't have essays, just for the private school.
지금 대학교 수시는 끝났대요. 미국 입시에서 수시는 지금 끝나고 수시가 12월 전에 끝나?
That's for the early decision. There's another wave that's in the middle of January.
그러면 결과가 언제 나와 그거는?
Middle of March.
3월 달에 나오면 그러면 여기도 미국에도 재수가 있어?
What is that?
재수 next year 다시 try 하는 거?
No, that doesn't exist. There's very few people. Sometimes what they do is they'll go to university and then they'll try to transfer from one university to the other.
그럼 만약에 대학교 아무 데도 못 붙었어? 난 하버드에 갈 줄 알고 하버드만 넣었어?
Yeah,
그럼
then
어떡해?
you have to keep going down in terms of the competitiveness of the schools.
그럼 아무 데나 일단 다 들어가는 거야 애들이? 몇 개 쓸 수 있어? 대학교를?
As many as you want.
아니 50개 할 수 있어?
Yeah, if you have time. But it's also expensive. Each one is like costs, on average, it's going to be between $100 and $200 to apply. And it takes time. You have to write essays for everyone, and then you have to do tests, and you have to get the recommendation. How many teachers are going to give you 50 recommendations?
아, 그 추천서가 꼭 있어야 돼 대학교로 가려면?
Like 95%. We need a recommendation.
조금 약간 늦은 감이 있지만 에세이를 잘 쓰는 방법에 대해서 질문을 해보기로 할게요. 왜 내가 물어보는지 사람들이 알아야 되잖아. 그래서 제가 준비했어요. 저희 이게 하도 오래된 책이지만 이게 뭔지 얘기해줘.
Every year, this couple, they picked like 50 essays to give as a reference to students that are learning how to prepare for application. But this one is for business school. There's different types of essays for business school and the 대학교, and if you go to private high school, it's different too. Yeah, when I applied to Wharton, I used these essays.
그래서 여기에 남편의 에세이가 베스트 에세이에 아무튼 들어가지고 여기 있어요. 그래서 이 두 개의 에세이가 이렇게 실렸거든요.
Yeah, I don't think they said that these are the best essays. What they said was that the people who got into these schools, they went to these schools, they wrote these essays. Yeah, but that's what they did.
이 뽑힌 걸 어디야. 역시 MIT 학생다운 조금의 오차도 글을 잘 쓴다는 거를 인정한 게 얘기해봐. 얘기 안 해? 부끄러워서 얘기 안 하는데 제가 대신 하도록 할게요. 삼성에서 옛날에 그 회장님이 계실 때 IOC 회장이었는데 IOC에 보내는 이메일을
Yeah, actually it was a letter.
아 이메일 아니었어? 편지였어?
I think it was a letter. He had to sign it or something.
아, 그거를 이렇게 작성을 해서 보냈대요. 그러니까 삼성에서도 인정한 글 잘 쓰는 사람으로. 졸려?
No.
아니 저번에
No, you're just making me tired with this comment.
여보, 요즘은 자기가 잘하는 거에 대해서 얘기를 해야 돼. 너무 부끄러워하는데 괜찮아요. 부끄러워하지 말고 노래 잘하는 사람은 노래하고 로마는 이렇게 그냥 방구석에 있기엔 좀 아쉽잖아. 사람들이 많이 궁금할 거예요. 도대체 MIT 갔던 사람들은 다른 학교 어디를 지원했을까? 저도 너무 궁금했거든요. 저는 이런 생각을 했어요. 하버드겠지? 했는데 로마 어디에 넣었다고?
Yeah, so I was going to study engineering, so I applied just to some engineering schools, a couple in the U.S. and a couple in Canada. U.S. it was MIT, Cornell, and the University of Michigan, and in Canada it was McGill University in Montreal and University of Toronto.
다 합격했어?
Yeah, but the reason to apply, even after I got the early decision from MIT, is because I didn't know how was going to be the financial aid. So we had to wait until March, and I had to apply to other schools to find out how is the loan or the scholarship and this sort of thing. In Canada, it's much cheaper too.
그래서 아무튼 다 합격을 한 거네.
Yeah.
좋겠다. 다 오라고 해서. 아휴, 부럽네요. 그러면 월튼 스쿨에 갈 때 어디 넣었어?
So I also applied to Sloan at MIT and Stanford Business School.
저건 스탠포드가 거기 있는 건가? 동부에?
California.
아, 캘리포니아에?
Yeah, it's in like Silicon Valley.
하나 맞춰보려고 했다가 동부에 있는 거? 스탠포드 말고? 데이브 딸이 간대.
Princeton?
아, 프린스턴.
No, but they don't have a business school.
에세이를 잘 쓰는 방법에 대해서 제가 챗 GPT한테 물어봐서 7개의 질문을 제가 해보도록 하겠습니다. 첫 번째, 에세이를 작성할 때 가장 중요하게 생각하는 게 뭐라고 생각해?
So again, it depends on what the purpose of the essay is. Here we're talking about essays to give, to get into a school. So it's really important just to choose a topic that you can reflect your own experience very specifically. So that when you're writing, you can give good examples and that you can elaborate in detail. If you pick a topic that you don't have a lot of personal experience, it's going to be very broad, not very specific, not a lot of details. It's going to be difficult for the reader to know who you are or how you behave or how you think. So you got to choose something that you have, that you can talk about an experience that you specifically have.
두 번째 질문. 본인의 에세이에 감정을 효과적으로 담는 방법이 있나요?
Yeah, so again, I think this is related to being very specific about your experience. And in English, they usually say, show, don't tell. What that means is, like, make a picture of what happened instead of just describing, just saying, oh, it was like this or like that. You can say, instead of saying, I was nervous, instead of saying that, you can say, my heart was beating really fast when this happened, and so I did this. So that's a way of saying you were nervous, but give more of a image what it is. Right?
그럼 나를 봐야지. 그럼 에세이를 쓸 때 쫙 써? 아니면 여러 번 쓴 다음에 여러 번 수정하고
Yeah, so there's two important steps. One is decide what you want to write about. So first of all, you look at the question. Make sure that you're able to answer the question with the information you're going to use. So you look at the question. It says, oh, tell me about experience that, was difficult or something. You have to think, okay, which example or examples am I going to use? That one, you don't have to write a whole essay. Just write down, okay, which are the ideas I'm going to think about. And then maybe when you think more about that, okay, well, this one happened a long time ago and it's not so related to my current experience. Okay, I'm going to cross that out. Or, oh, I just had this thing happen last month. It's maybe minor thing, but I can explain very well and I can, okay, let me include that. So first you do a process just to figure out what you're going to talk about. Then after that, I would write as much as I can about that topic, making sure that I'm answering the question. And then after that, review many times. Don't think about it for like 1 or 2 weeks. Then come back, read it fresh. Be like, I don't like this. Or, oh, it's better if I use this example. Oh, and then make some adjustments. Then after that, leave it and then read it again later. Or ask someone who knows you, can you read this and tell me what you think? They can be like, oh, yeah, but there's this characteristic of your personality or your experience that is not clear, and I know you can write about that. So then they give you some feedback. Be like, oh, think about this point and do it again. First think of the ideas. Cut out the ones you don't want, keep the ones that you want. then write an essay, then let it sit, then read it fresh, then give it to someone else. After you read it again and you like, let them feedback. And then at the end, like maybe, right before you need to send it, just read it again, make sure you didn't make some mistakes, like some grammar or some, and then finally when you're tired, then you can just send it. Just say, okay, I'm sorry.
챗 GPT한테 물어보는 건 어떻게 생각해?
I've used ChatGPT for almost 2 years. First of all, it's not perfect. Secondly, it doesn't know your experience, so it just is going to write whatever it imagines based on what you told it. Thirdly, this is probably the most important one. Whatever ChatGPT writes, it's ChatGPT. If you take the essay and put it through the AI, like even these schools, they can check and they'll be like, oh, this one is like 90% written by GPT. Or not GPT, AI. There's many ways to detect that. I think the best way, so you don't get lazy, is just think about your own experience, write it down, and just do that. When you do that, your style of writing will be clear. If you start mixing with some help from a tool, it's not going to catch your style of writing. And then later, when the school compares with some other thing, or the recommendation, or your interview, it won't give such a clear image about who you are. So you shouldn't use it for writing your essay.
그럼 로만 도대체 한 에세이를 쓰려면 어느 정도 걸려? 한 달?
So I think ideally for these sorts of like applications, you need to start at least 1 or 2 months before the application is due. Not because it takes that long to write the essay, but because it gives your brain time to think about it, and then in the background it's thinking, say, oh,
오랫동안 쓰는구나.
yeah.
로만, 에세이 어드바이저 되고 싶어? 말 엄청 많은데?
No.
아니야? 엄청 좋아하는 것 같은데?
Yeah, that's not my job.
네 번째 질문. 에세이를 검토하고 수정할 때 가장 중점을 두는 부분은 뭔가요?
Especially the first time you review is the information or the example, is it good for this answer? If the example's not good, it doesn't matter if you fix all the spelling or the grammar or whatever, you got to cut it out and then change it to something else. So the first thing you got to do is make sure that the content is suitable, like it matches the question. After that, then the next time you check if the language is good. Like, I can write this a little bit shorter, or I can be a little bit more clear, or I can use the same word like 4 times. Let me see if I can make it a little bit different so that the person who's reading it doesn't get bored. So, but those things only after the content is decided. So the examples or the story that you want to tell, if that story is fixed, then you can do the like little tiny detail change.
그래서 만약에 에세이를 쓰다가 막히는 부분이 있어. 그러면 어떻게 해야 돼?
Yeah, so the best thing is just stop. Maybe share the idea with someone who knows you pretty well. Share the question. Talk to your friends or your parents or whatever, the people who know about your experience. And they might, because they know your experience, they might be able to suggest, oh, did you think about this? Or what about this story? Or what about that? And they can give you some, they can remind you something that you did and you didn't think about. This type of situation where you can't think, it's not thinking about the right word or the right way of saying. It's thinking about the example, because that's the main story. So you don't have to create something. In fact, we talked about this before, don't make something up. Don't invent. Think about your experiences and what could be suitable to answer the question. And
그럼 로만 에세이 쓸 때 로만한테 제일 그런 도움을 준 사람이 누구야?
when I was applying to business school, I checked with my coworker from Ford. And I said, hey, can you read these essays? And the guy told me, he's like, these are terrible. Like, this is not clear, or this example is not very good.
진짜.
And then he's like, think again, or try. What about this? What about that? And I was like, you're right. And I redid like 2 of the essays.
이렇게 다른 사람 에세이를 보고 이렇게 참고를 하고 이런 게 도움이 된다고 생각해?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's two ways. It could give you some inspiration of, I have something that I can write like that. It can give you some reference, like, this is a way that I can talk about this idea or something like that. It also helps to have more vocabulary, like just your way of expressing things or describing things. But if you read too many essays, then I think maybe it might pollute your thinking. You need to think about your original content.
마지막 질문이야. 내 에세이를 읽는 사람한테 나를 꼭 기억하게 해야 되잖아. 그런 팁이 있으면 어떤 게 있어?
So to the reader, it needs to be clear. This person's, what did they learn? How did you overcome something? Like what were the characteristic of your personality that you want me to remember? Because probably each admissions person reads like 100 essays or more than that. I don't know. This person is like this, but there's something different. There's something special. There's something I want this person to be in my school. Somehow it has to be memorable. So something that makes it fit the value of the school.
만약 고급 단어를 많이 쓴다고 좋은 건 아니야?
If the person speaks like that, it might be okay because it's consistent. But if you use a very specialized word in the essay, and when you're talking, it's very simple, then you're like, I'm not sure, where did this person get all these, how did they write this thing? Doesn't make sense.
이거 좋은 예가 그거네. 로만이 내 에세이를 대신 써주고 내가 인터뷰를 하면 그 사람이 뭐야 이 거짓말이잖아 이렇게 하잖아. 나와줘서 감사합니다.
Okay.
고마워요. 또 궁금한 점이 있으면 댓글 남겨주시면 제가 또 내 남편을 초대하도록 할게요.
That's good.
오늘 졸린 거 아니지?
No, I'm fine. All right.
그 미국에서는 리더의 역할을 엄청 중요하게 생각하는 것 같아요. 리더가 되는 거 아니야?
The reader? Wait, what's your question?
리더십 이런 걸 엄청 중요하게
I'm not
생각해요.
talking about leadership. I'm talking about the reader.
알아요.
The 읽은 사람.